Hi there, welcome to the Moscow, Idaho 4 murder case. Today we're looking at a new theory, something that's never been talked about before on this channel. It's to do with the possibilities of drug dealing, drug usage gone wrong. If there was dealers within the area at the time of the murders, is there a correlation? And we can also apply it to the unknown DNA found within the crime scene house of unknown males, 3 of which there could be some crossovers, you never know. And you may wonder, why now? Why has it just come up, this idea in my head? Well, it's because of applying it from last night and the video I did there. A very interesting analysis in terms of the street view and censored objects and buildings besides the crime scene house. If you are interested in that, make sure to catch up. Top right corner of the screen, you click on that eye symbol, you'll be redirected to that last video. In addition to last night's video, be sure to catch up on it. I'm going to address the comments, respond back to them, see if there's any questions that need answering. And the comments from last night are relevant to today's video. That's why it's important you get the full idea and perspective of what's gone down recently as for my analysis, and it is best advised for you to stick around from start to finish to truly understand what this video is all about. I'm aware, kind of in recent time, not everyone has done that. I know regulars do, so that's all good there, but the outsiders, if they don't stick around long enough, they're going to misunderstand. That's why it's important, to watch all the way through if possible, and it will be appreciated. Now, welcome to those that are currently here in this live premiere. Be sure to share your thoughts, opinions and reactions in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to add on or have any questions, list them down below under this video in the comments section, and I can always get back to them, answer them at a later point, just like what I'm doing today. If you want to, feel free, check out my pinned comment down below with some additional links if you wish to check them out. There's like alternative ways if you want to support the channel, it's all there at hand. So with that all being said and done, let's first address the comments from last night in regards to the Idaho 4 case, and then we can apply it to today's theory. I will just adjust the comments to the newest and we can start from the bottom. Got a couple to get through. We got abandoned mines and exploring unusual places. Good to see Frank showing up. His comment was, in regards to Google Earth blurring images on Street View, people can now elect to have images of their own property blurred out by sending a request to Google. Not sure why the one image of that tree would be blurred out when none of the other images are. Someone obviously requested that particular shot to be blurred. And whilst yes, I can understand the initial part, what Frank is getting at, a homeowner, someone within the area, they want privacy, fair enough. They don't want people online seeing the houses. Okay. As for the specific areas that needed to be blurred out, maybe because it's sensitive to the case if evidence was found in that spot, okay, fair enough. But, and there is a but, from certain angles, it's not blurred at all. So it makes it pointless, right? If you're going to blur out something, you're going to do it from all angles regardless. Kind of like what they did with that one house on Wellenta Drive, right? Or Wellanta, however you say it. In terms of the crime scene house, the murder house, yes, that's been blurred out too for privacy, whatever. Does it matter now, considering the house has been demolished ever since, right? Will it ever be reversed? Probably not. But, from a certain angle, you can still see the house and it's not blurred out at all. So it comes down to that picking and choosing. It's not quite definitive, right? And I was just assuming originally, before I saw people's comments who seem to have more knowledge on the case, I just thought that maybe some things were blurred out, but not from all angles because it was just a mistake made. Because if you're on the same road with the same street view imagery of the same year, date, month, time, it's all done in one go, then it should all be blurred out, right? In a particular spot, but it's not. So I still think there's a bit of a glitch going on possibly. We got this guy saying you can blur your own house on Google Earth. Now this is the thing, if that's the case, I'm surprised I'm just surprised not many others have done the same thing. Considering the street views, what we've been on my channel, and what I've done when just casually looking on Google Earth, there are so many buildings, houses out there that are not blurred out. So it's just interesting how suddenly now I've ended up coming across it. I mean, you look at cars, the license plates, and people's faces at times, they're blurred out and censored. But when you look in the UK, license plates aren't always censored. People's faces aren't censored. So it seems to change maybe from place to place, country to country, right? There are some locations out there on satellite imagery, not even street view, which are completely blurred out, like some kind of airport, I think in Greece somewhere. So I guess it's different restriction levels, but general public have access to that type of stuff. They've not utilised it, have they? Unless they just don't know, or they're not too fussed about it. This person called Andra saying, cool accent here for the first time. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you like the accent. As a heads up, Adram, if that's how you say your name, Andram, I can do around 15 to 16 different accents from different countries. I don't know when they'll pop up, but sometimes they do, others now. Andram says, everything about Idaho 4 is crazy, not just Google Earth. Everything since day one, the whole case is a huge cover-up. I believe Brian Kohberger was left as the fall guy. The real killers are out there. I hope the truth prevails. I wouldn't say red rum on YouTube, they don't like that word. Is that a code word or something? Or a reference to something politically incorrect? I don't know. I think I've heard of it though. Response-wise, Christy says, that's my theory too, plus mistakes were made by the police at the beginning. So, if I'll be honest with you, reading your comment, Andram, and even what Christy is highlighting here, if you didn't know it was about Idaho 4, you'd probably think it's the Dylan Rounds case all over again, right? Just in case how it was worded, right? Police making mistakes, ruining certain chances or opportunities with evidence, let's just say supposedly. That's kind of like how the argument was put across with the LE in the Dylan Rounds case with the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office, etc. And even in a situation of the supposed killer being the fall guy who's actually innocent and the real killer's out loose elsewhere, that's kind of like how the original argument was put across in the Dylan Rounds case as an idea that James Brenner was the fall guy, may have cleared up after the murder of Dylan Rounds, but wasn't the main man. And there's somebody else or group out there that are responsible, Chase Venstra, Robert Aviles, etc., etc. Now, it's not been fully proven. There's not enough evidence of that. But, I understand the different ideas and points of views, just like what's mentioned here. Now, to be fair, I did also mention it myself, so I can kind of understand and agree that with Kohberger, if by some chance that he is innocent and other people framed him, that mine might be a different angle, but I was on the concept of, did somebody frame Brian Kohberger? Was it a university student or a former student that had a grudge against Kohberger, maybe because how they were spoken to or treated at some point in the past? People can hold grudges for many different reasons, serious and petty stuff. Maybe we can do some polls tonight. I will take on board the polls with the Idaho 4 case, although slightly limited there as coverage and knowledge. I'll try and do a poll on my channel as well, see how many people engage with it. Okay, we are seeing a wave of new people coming on in, which can be positives. Christy says, in regards to blurring it out, to blur out the house was not enough, so they took it down completely. The demolition. This guy called Dustin says blurring it out wasn't going to hide all the DNA of the guilty females that were involved, saying shush. Right, so it looks like, depending how you interpret it, the Idaho 4 case comes off as a deep-rooted community of ideas, thoughts, and supposed secret knowledge out there. Maybe we'll get to it eventually. But this person's saying females guilty. Dustin, are you referring to the guilty females as being the actual victims that got killed, responsible for bringing trouble to that house, that they were a target to begin with and others got caught up in it, collateral damage? Is that what you're referring to? Or Are you talking about other females within the area responsible directly for being the murderers or murderer, or somehow being a part of it in other ways? A witness, an accomplice? Let me know your thoughts if you want to expand on that, okay? We got this guy, Jim, saying houses blurred out were houses with video surveillance. At least that's what was said later on. Right. So we're talking about the house across the road on the other side, basically opposite to the murder house, opposite to the crime scene. Now, unfortunately, you could go down that street originally and it wasn't blurred. It's a shame I didn't have the chance back then to turn around and look at that building to analyse if there were any cameras or if there was a doorbell. But at least from what the comments say here, that it was a form of surveillance. So CCTV camera, doorbell. Okay, fair enough. My question though would be, what about the building on the same side of the road as the murder house, adjacent to it, next to? That house, that building was initially blurred out before the murder house was, and then it changed over. So is that because the angle of that house with the doors not being on the sides but on the front, it wouldn't be the same angle perspective as a house opposite the murder house, probably because of where the doorbell is, the cameras, they tend to be either in the corners or closer, pointing down towards the doorway and entrance of the person's there in the house. But at times you can see in the background of what goes on across the street. So kind of indirect surveillance of the area. Maybe with the other buildings not being facing doorway to the murder house, they wouldn't be of the same use unless there was cameras on the sides, which I don't think there was. But, this is what I mean. As for this comment, and I think there's a few others, with these areas being blurred out, it's important, right, to highlight and acknowledge, because it can answer people's questions. It can add to what some may already know of and reinforce key points. If each blurred spot is a key spot where evidence was found, well, that's important. At least it marks it out for us so we can always look back at it, and it's like a prompt, which is interesting. Jim says the trees being blurred is a location where Maddie's jacket was found. Blurred areas are markers. If blurred areas are markers, does that apply to every single blurred area, what we looked at in last night's video? Such as going up Wallanta Drive or Wallanta Road, and it was going up that slope on that bend, and you saw that small little house on the side, which was overlooking the community lower down of the area of the crime scene. That wasn't blurred, but right next to it, on like the slope where it goes up to the wooded area, and you saw you had a little bit of fencing and yellow wire or post, that was censored. That's kind of like on the outer skirt of the area, right? Why was that blurred? Was that another piece of evidence, or was that just an error? Because I'm sure there'll be some errors on Google Earth. Like, I've looked at other locations and it's been blurred out. I don't mean to say everything is evidence-based. I mean, what's your thoughts, Jim, on the other house or some kind of building structure that was blurred out, which is far further away from the area of the crime scene? Was that just done out of privacy for restrictive reasons unrelated to the case? Because I do agree and believe that there'll be some areas of interest blurred out for an obvious reason, but there might be a few mistakes made along the way, just so happens to be in the proximity or not far from, where there could be a bit of conflict, misunderstandings. Anyway, this person underneath says, exactly. And the house across the street from 1122 is where the camera was near their door that was used for its footage. Every single one of those is absolutely a marker, exactly as you've stated. People have to open their minds. Just to think, you say people have to open their minds, yet I'm the one to have covered and documented it in the video, acknowledging and pointing out points of interest. If it wasn't for me doing this, then who else is, to the same extent? I said, I've analysed maps, been on Google Earth, done street view analysis for quite some time now over a range of different cases. So For most part of it, it's all under control. Moving on. Jim says, evidently there were trail cameras in the trees around the house. Something to do with photo class projects. I don't know, strange. Right, talking about trail cameras, would that be possibly linked with Wallenta Drive up the slope round the bend in those trees then? But then again, it wasn't high up in the trees that was blurred, it was lower down near the fence area. And this is what I'm going to say once again. The odd house blurred out from almost every angle, but then other areas where there was evidence found, why is it only blurred out from a certain angle? Yet if I was just to move up a few more centimetres, it's exactly the same thing as I'm looking at, but it's no longer blurred. Shouldn't they completely blur it out from every angle possible if it's that serious? And if it needed to be used as a marker and that's why it was blurred out, it just seems a bit stupid on Google Earth, because what, you're going to get police, you're going to get people in court loading up Google Earth during the trial and say, well, this is where this was, this is where that was. No, they'll probably have it a bit more formally done, probably. I think using Google Earth in one of those formal situations seems a little bit amateur. And as for the general public, I mean, I'm just trying to think back. Have we ever encountered another area, or any of you people watching right now, let me know in the chat, have you been on Google Earth at some point during a crime scene, an ongoing event that happened at a time, a murder situation, a mass shooting, and was anything blurred out? Have you ever experienced this before? Is this the first time? I want to know your thoughts. Moving on. Jim says the blue house is where Jack lived. The shoes on the lines are markers of a trap house common in the cities. Jessica says, where do you live? It certainly isn't in the small country town of Moscow, Idaho. Jim says, I'm in Portland, Oregon, but you can find this in most bigger cities. So, does trap house mean drug house? It's just because when I think of trap, first thing that comes to my mind is trap music. Probably unrelated. Anyway, aside from that, Chicago saying 1704, the greenhouse door. Why is that door numbered blurred out? I don't know, I didn't really pick up on it, but good spot. Maybe blurred out either out of privacy, the homeowners, the ones owning that house or living in it. Maybe they wanted it blurred out for their own privacy. Or if it's another key piece of evidence as for a person of interest or a witness that lives in that building at the time or still to this day, and it needs to be blurred out for safety reasons, to legal reasons, who knows. What have we got here? Wim saying, where I live, shoes, also known as sneakers, we're using American language right now, on the wires is a sign of where to buy drugs. Right, so you see where this video is going today. That's why we're looking at the comments right now. Dustin says, gangster tombstones is what I always heard. Makes sense both ways. Gail says, it can be used to show where they sell drugs. It can also be used to show that there is organised crime gangs in the area, but most of the time it's in honour of the dead. Most of the time? So there's a bit of variety here, right? Now, Gail, don't feel like you've got to censor yourself. You can type out drugs. Your comment shouldn't get deleted. Some other people left comments using the word drugs and they were okay. Of course, YouTube can be, random at times when it comes to censoring comments. It's very annoying, I understand. But this is the thing, with the whole shoe situation, honouring the dead or honouring an event that's gone on, which has been a tragic outcome. What we've got to understand is, from the looks of it, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, apologies if I am incorrect, but down King's Road on Street View, it appears to be out of date. You look at the house, it looks like it's occupied, nothing wrong, nothing gone on, because it was before the event took place, before the murders. Whereas when you come off King's Road and you're on like the main road, let's say, and you drive on down a little bit and you look through the gap between those other two flats and buildings, you can see the murder house in the background, uncensored, fenced off, boarded up with the security box, which obviously means it's relevant to this whole case because Street View just so happened to drive on down there and document it at the time after the murder situation took place, right? So we're going back to King's Road. With that being outdated, those shoes thrown up on those lines, would it be more likely to signify the death of someone, or like what Wim said, to do with drugs, a drop-off point, a buying point, a dealing point? I'd say it's more to do with drug dealing than it is to do with the death of someone, okay? If the whole shoe situation is more so honouring the death of somebody that got caught up in a tragic event, specifically speaking, such as a murder, well, obviously it can't link to the Moscow, Idaho 4 case because it was before that, the shoes were before the case actually happened, right? The night of the killings, way before that. So then you could highlight, it could open up the possibilities of, were there any more suspicious deaths in that area in the past, which was either unreported or came to like a cold case dead end? Because if there was more than one death, or, well, multiple deaths over a long period of time, then you could say maybe there's something dodgy really going on there. And would it apply to Koviga or somebody else out there that's still on the run to this day? Now, I'm sure it's been worded, described by people over time that the community and area is kind of quiet and peaceful. Is it really? Would it be considered peaceful, quiet, stable if there's drug dealing going on? To what extent and severity of it in terms of danger levels? That's what we're looking at today. And we can tell the story, we can do the analysis on the spot once we get to the Street View. I just want to finish off these comments. So, Patricia says, murder, murder. Okay. Then we got this person called Jessica showing up again. Says, what does a blurred out house and shoes on a power line have to do with 4 young college students being butchered to death? I had to ask because this video is beyond ridiculous. You know what's ridiculous, Jessica? Besides your dead end channel, it's the lack of contribution you've provided here specifically. What you've decided to do is whinge, whine, complain without being patient, without demonstrating different points of views. Jessica, you come across as an egocentric individual who's also impetuous. Rewind the video, rewatch, revise, rethink. Okay, do you think you can do that, Jessica? Because what you're questioning here about the shoe situation, there's answers provided down below, which is a success in itself. People were able to answer a question and it can be reinforced or at least applied to today's video. Okay, so Jessica, if you're watching today's video and you're about to complain once again, just rewatch the previous one and then move on to this and you should understand clearer. Okay? Gail says, I guess you guys don't do the shoe thing across the pond, basically meaning in the UK. Here in the US, when you see shoes hanging from power wires, it's usually in honour of the dead. In some urban areas like cities, shoes on power wires can be used to show a spot where they sell drugs. It can also be used to show the area has organised crime, such as the mob or gangs, but most of the time it's in honour of the dead. We see shoes hanging a lot here. Well, either way, it's not exactly a good thing, is it? The more shoes you see hanging about, the more chances that drug dealing's going on or murders have occurred or gangs are present. Either way, it's mostly negative, right? So you might have more shoes. Don't mean to say it's a good thing. As for the UK, when it comes to shoes, there only tends to be one shoe and it's on the side of a road or side of a pathway. And I never understand where the other shoe has gone. Like, do people just hop about on one shoe and they chuck the other one away? It never makes sense, that, and you get quite a few of them. Also, there's times where on walks you get a lot of white gloves or blue gloves. I don't know if people have been fingering around or something or touching things. I have no clue what goes on. But as for markers or indicators to signify a darker presence, well, I guess it doesn't apply to the UK in that sense. I guess if it comes to the dealing part, it's literally people just stood around looking a bit dodgy and waiting for a drop-off or waiting for a client or waiting for someone. So there's that. But as for shoes being hung up, as for the full context, I can't quite remember, but I remember seeing a video online, and it's probably more so to do with US soldiers deployed in a certain country, maybe the Middle East, over in that direction or so. And they're saying how soldiers would attempt or so to chuck their boots up at was it a powerhead line or was it inside of a building, trying to throw it up so it would latch onto something and dangle. And there's like hundreds of them, and it's to either honour servicemen, servicewomen which have come and gone, whether it be to do with on the way out of all that deployment and the time spent out there, now they're leaving the area and they chuck the boots up as a final farewell or something like that. I don't know if it's directly to do with death or more so the arrival or departure of themselves from that country and area. So there might be some other alternative ideas. Was there any response-wise there? This one says, someone that sold drugs told you that lie. That was a dope house. When you say a dope house, you mean what, a drug house, a drug den, or are you saying dope in cool? Because some people use their language in that sense too. Gail says, okay, first of all, I've been on this earth for a hot minute, 49 years. So this person's 49 years old, saying I've also been around the block a few frickin' times, so nobody told me nothing. Or maybe, I guess the mob told me that too, right? You need to stop being rude and smarten the hell up. There's definitely more than one reason for shoes being on power wires. You can look it up yourself, it's called Google. Maybe you've heard of it. In case you didn't notice, I did include the drug thing in one of the reasons, so pay attention now. I just told you that. Right, so it seems like that strangers on my channel, foreign to my channel but more familiar with the case, these new people we come across are already established, I guess, already within the community of the Idaho 4 case. So it could be a bit of a bumpy ride, right? Especially in the early stages. We'll see how that goes. This guy, another gym. There's a lot of gyms about, saying shoes on wires represent dead person. There are 4 here. But, as I said, correct me if I'm wrong, as for that murder house and the street view imagery, besides not quite knowing the year, which is very unfortunate, or at least the month, the building doesn't come across as if a crime has recently taken place. It's not boarded up, it's not been fenced off. You get what I'm saying? So I don't think the shoes directly correlate to the deaths of the 4 students. Okay? Sandy says there are videos proving the actual murders were away from 1122 King Road at Taylor Avenue, apartments Banfield of Maddie and Kaylee and Linda, Lane, Ethan and Xana, caught on private residence ring cam at 13:30? Is that the time you referring to, or the house number? Moscow police had the ring cam video within 4 days. Defence has requested match of audio and video, but DA has not provided video. The 4 victims were carried to 1122 King Road in white plastic and staged in their rooms. And more importantly, Brian Koberger is innocent and being railroaded to protect wealthy, super self-entitled frat boys. I can't get that word out. I'm not going to say it because I know Americans will lose their minds if I say it wrong. And donors to U of Idaho. Unmarked white Ford Fusion is driven by LE on the 11/13/2022. LE seen sheath, bloodied large knife seen in left hand of male at Linda Lane caught on ring cam, but head down with baseball cap and covers face. White Elantra identified close enough, and Brian Koberger known as socially awkward loner. Shoes hanging on wires speculated by some to be a sign of a drug area, which seems to be more the case. Okay, well, I'll be honest, never heard this stuff before. Not seen it in any articles. Is there a reason specifically for it? Because it's sensitive, or it's going against the narrative others want it to be portrayed as? As for anyone watching right now, regular viewers, people that know me, have you heard this information before? I want to know your reactions down below. Okay. This person says, what you don't realise is where you think there is another building at approximately the 11-minute mark of my video. It says, what, crime scene with a yellow-orange pin on the map that you're zooming in and out of. You're looking at a shadow. Right. So at the 11-minute mark, I wasn't even talking about that, so I don't know what you're on about. And that little marker, I was the one that placed it there. It was my project that I created. It was highlighting the points of interest of locations that were blurred out for possible different reasons. So if you actually bothered to watch the video, you would have understood the purpose of it. Okay? And this person here says, typical American, need to educate yourself on shoes and telephone lines. In America, teens, some hang them when a friend has passed. Also, as far as the case concerned, you need a dick. It's not XM. Symbol is Greek frat house. For sure, if you know this case, you would know about the frats, right? Yeah. Okay. So, as for, what was it? A man down or something, person down below in the comment section, you at least heard one of my alternative accents in the process. Okay. Right. So, there's chances, okay, let's be fair, there's chances that outsiders to my channel may show resistance or a certain attitude, okay? I do appreciate everybody else, regulars or new people that are patient and understanding. That's always good to see. What does this user say? The house where the murders took place has been demolished. That's true. It's ridiculous as well. YouTube, the restrictions on words, pictures, etc. Yep, YouTube deleting comments, it's all a joke. Let's say, get on with chap. What? Makes no sense. Jennifer, shoes mean it's a trap house. Drug house, right? Is it? YOLO, just came across your channel. Stay safe. You too. Interesting profile pictures here. We've got one of a skull and one of a crow or raven. Dodging Bullet says, first off, is because it's a huge cover-up. So I guess all the blurring out of stuff. It's a huge cover-up, and all those that wanted it down are, in my opinion, part of the cover-up. What? Wanting the building down, the university? Furthermore, why take the house down at all? Keeping the mystery going and the questions coming, no glitches. The truth needs to come out and let Brian Koberger go free, in my opinion. Right, okay. Loran says, the shoes drowned onto power lines is a signal location of a crack house or prime dealing drug spot, or it may be the gang members claiming territory. Either way, any type of presence like that in an area isn't exactly in a good situation to be in, especially if you live there. What if you get caught up in it? What if you see something you're not supposed to see? What happens if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time? Maybe like the 4 students were, if you're looking at it from that angle and perspective at least, okay? Stacy says, property owners can also request their property to be blurred out on Google Maps, but some neighbours wanted their peace of mind back. Right, Stacy, you said Google Maps. Google Maps is different to Google Earth, 2 separate launchers. One does more than the other. On Google Earth, you can create projects, and I think you can flip the image, unlike Google Maps. So just let me know which one you're directly referring to there. Any responses? So it's appreciate that, Cleo, support there. And also shout out to the individual last night in the background. I don't know if to mention their name or not, just because, you know, privacy and everything. But shout out to the people and person in recent time for their support on the channel in the background. So it appears we've reached the end of the comments here. So there seems to be a form of consistency, at least, with the whole shoe situation. Let's look at the true definition of it, what comes up on Google. So by typing it in on Google with regards to shoes on overhead wires, down below it says, shoes on a telephone wire are popularly said to be linked to organised crime, signifying the location of gang turf, commemorating the death of a gang member or a non-gang member who lived in the area. The shoes are also rumoured to mark a spot for drug dealing. So it ties in line, it's consistent with what people have been saying on the comment section of my last video, as it does say here. The real question is, Do any of these type of activities link in with the case of Idaho 4? Do any of these activities involve somehow indirect or direct with the 4 students that lost their lives? That's the question. One small point I just wanted to add on before we get onto the street view and begin the idea and theory of it all is in regards to Bing Maps and even Apple Maps. I tried looking at the area, Kings Road, Moscow, Idaho, just to see what the street view was like, and unfortunately there is no street view imagery available. From the satellite imagery and looking down above, I wouldn't say there was anything blurred or censored either. So that's unfortunate. Anyone wondering why that was done, I tested it out last night. The main purpose was to see if, whilst Google may restrict things and people have reached out to Google Earth or Google Maps specifically, homeowners, people within the area, the university, whoever, would they have done the same for all the other map services? The only other way or method around it could be looking at archive photos, but I don't know, it kind of defeats the purpose in a way. If you could get interactional street view imagery where you can walk about, move around as you would, like with the normal street view, but you could go back in time, that would be more helpful. Now, as for Google Earth itself, specifically, I believe you can go back in time, I think, but to be fair, it might be more so Google Maps. Google Maps seems to have more accessibility when it comes to going back in time. So maybe I'll have to have a brief look at that some other point. Google Earth, I don't think you can go back in time quite the same way. Google Earth Pro, you can go back in time when looking at satellite imagery. So it's more so for street view imagery going back in time, if records are available, it's better suited for Google Maps. If you want satellite imagery to go back in time, well, Google Earth Pro is the way to go. That's how it works there. Satellite imagery going back in time, in regards to the Idaho 4 case, I don't know how useful it would be unless you could find the correct time, year, date, month, and see what it looks like, if there's any cars parked up or not, any unexpected visitors. It would be difficult to determine probably. I know going back in time, image quality can look really bad, and I've done some comparisons where 2022 imagery was very, very blurry, but 2013 imagery was crystal clear. So I don't know why it's so inconsistent there. Surely you would have thought with, as time goes on and there's better technology, the quality would go up as well, but it's not guaranteed. I have used Google Earth Pro's imagery going back in time with the satellite, with the Kenny Veach case, but unfortunately, the missing years, the missing months, it just felt like it was done on purpose, unable to find the relevant material. I guess it just was wrong place, wrong time, just unfortunate. Will the same happen with Idaho 4? I don't know, but I'll take a look at it in the background in the meantime, and I'll report back to you if anything is found. But that aside, coming on back to this case specifically, this theory of it, it hasn't been made clear enough already, apologies, but the aim of the initial part of this video was to look at the comments from last night because it ties in with the idea of today. The theory being indirectly or directly the presence of an outside force operating within the area. Gangs, gang member, drug dealer, drug dealing, any of those type of people in the area at the time of when the murders took place at the house, within the area, because you've always got that unknown DNA which could link to it. So to tell the story a little bit clearer, or at least to share with you my ideas, we'll get on Street View. Take in mind, you don't have to agree with me, but just at least listen to what I've got to say, because there's possibilities, right? Here we are. I'll just zoom on in a little bit, rotate around just so it's a bit easier to reference, so we're head on with the buildings. So, from the looks of it, we were on this corner street, the road, looking down. This building here was okay. this building horizontal was blurred out from the looks of it, but it is head on almost with the crime scene house. So I'd understand as to why it would be applicable, because with it facing the crime scene and the door as well, the entrance way, camera, doorbell camera facing whoever may have come in and come out. But I guess the key question would be, like when it comes to the windows on this building, on the sides or on the front, wherever that glove was found on the outside near to the window, that would imply that maybe that was used in the murder possibly. Someone preventing fingerprints or so they don't contaminate the area or incriminate themselves at the scene of the crime. It would also imply that maybe that was the entrance exit point, because the glove was found nearby, so the person could have been climbing on through, entering or leaving, and dropped the glove behind, especially if it was in their back pocket or so. I say that because if the window has a significance as for an entry-exit point, any buildings in this area with cameras pointing in that specific direction, aside from this building here supposedly that's been blurred out, any of these flats here, any cameras on the sides, back there probably wouldn't be cameras unless the reference by that comment saying there was trail cameras or so as a project or so, maybe for the university group. Anyway, what I do want to highlight, if we go on Street View, just so it's easy as a reference point. So I was saying how this tree, from the looks of it, blurred out, and I don't know if it was exactly this tree or the tree a few streets down that way. Maybe this tree here, near to the powerhead line. There was that comment, what we looked at earlier, where someone was saying that the jacket was found. Is this the area where the jacket was supposedly found? What, hanging on the tree or on the ground? Feel free to elaborate if you want. And that's building what we referred to just before, past this one here. Okay. So the whole shoe situation. Do we have any shoes there? No. Is there any shoes over that way? Nope. Any shoes further on down? Don't think there is. Let's look for lots of shoes. Any shoes over that way? Not from the looks of it. It just seems to be in this little spot here. This one spot, shoes going all the way across. Now, is that because this is the key point on the corner where the deals could take place? Cars parked up on the side, dealings, who knows? Does it look like an area where there'd be like gang warfare, gang territory? Well, you wouldn't expect it, right? I mean, before we get straight into linking it to the 4 students at least, the way this area has been described in the past, whether it be a false narrative or the truth, it's always been described as a quiet, peaceful community, no trouble, no chaos. And then my recent video highlighting the shoes on the wires, in which the definition of it would signify either the death of somebody, maybe that lived in the area, or some kind of gang territory meaning sign, or some kind of drug dealing taking place. Either way, negative events, right? And certain events that can lead to death. Now, if, let's say that these shoes, as some people said, these shoes were to represent people within the area or a person that's passed away. Someone was saying, there was 4 shoes. Let's see, let's count. 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 pairs, 4 pairs. Is there any more? So I can understand 4 pairs of shoes, could that be to resemble and represent the 4 victims? It would be a very fair point to assume. But the problem is, and if I'm correct in saying, unfortunately, because it's blurred, it's hard to make out, but I'm just not quite sure if this street view imagery is quite up to date with what you see on this road. It can't be. No, these were taken at different times, right? Like, look at that field, look at the grass, look at the colour of it. Are the shoes still there? they are. I can see shoes from the looks of it on the overhead line. Let's just move up a little bit. Can we still see shoes dangling? I guess it's harder to tell here. Actually, that's kind of weird, that. It's trying to figure out the timing of it all. We get a bit closer. You can make out the shoes. You can make out the shoes on the line over that way. I can see it at least. But you look at the grass, it's a lot greener, and there is a student walking across the grass. As soon as you come off King's Road, as you see there, King Road, you come off onto this street here, it changes because it's taken at different times, different months, different days, maybe different years. And the reason why that's important is trying to figure out what's more relevant, what's more recent to the scene of the crime, to the actual event where the 4 students lost their lives. And unfortunately, it just doesn't give a date, at least on here, which is annoying. But grass is different there, more scorch, taken at different times. So I would say that Taylor Avenue may be more up to date than King Road is. King Road has the shoes dangling on the overhead line, but more present day, or at least more present to, the crime taking place, are there still shoes? Well, yeah, there are still shoes. So at different times when Street View car came down to take the photos and imagery, at different times there were shoes present on the lines. So wouldn't that be consistent? Though the positioning of the shoes may not be quite the same. The positioning of the shoes don't quite align from the looks of it. When at the very top, before you get onto King Road, looking at this overhead line, it seemed more so over that way, or at least just above that house over there where that black and white car is, there was a pair of shoes above on the line, whether it be the line closest to the house over there or the line here. There was a pair of shoes. If we go back to the spot, I'll show you what I mean. I know that's we need to back out just a little bit. Can you see? Over that way, there's a pair of shoes. And that's the overhead line closest to the house over there, where there's a white pickup truck. And if you go closer to it, obviously the cars and vehicles have changed over time, but what else has changed is there's no longer shoes over there on the lines, but there are shoes that have been added here. So what I'd come to the conclusion of when linking it to the Idaho 4 case, assuming that even though that's been censored over there, this may have been taken before the scene of the crime, because I don't remember seeing anything fenced off or boarded up over that way when you could go down that street. So if this imagery was taken before the murders took place, then these shoes are less likely to represent the people that lost their lives there, and more likely to represent something else going on within the area. And there seems to be some kind of consistency in the fact that when you are back onto the main road, or at least on Taylor Avenue, the shoes don't seem to show up in the same position, but other shoes show up elsewhere on power lines, overhead lines, further on down near to that house, which when we looked down King's Road, it wasn't there. So at different times, shoes have been moved about, added, replaced, taken away. Kind of weird. But it would show the consistency in activity levels within the area. So if on different times, different years, different occasions, shoes have been added, removed, replaced, moved along, maybe it's less likely to do with deaths of people and maybe more likely to do with drug usage, drug dealing. It ties in line within this small area. Could this be the drop-off point? Could this be the dealing point? It comes to a dead end down there. Not exactly private though. Can we just move further on up here a little bit to see if there's any more shoes? Can you see over that way on the overhead lines, closest to that like greenish house flats? The overhead lines, there's no shoes at all on the overhead lines. But there is over in that direction further on down. Yeah, down King Road itself, there are no shoes down there, but there are shoes up there. So why did the shoes keep moving about? That's what I want to know. Why are the shoes moving about? Does anyone know? And as said, this photo here clearly shows the scene of the crime because it's after the murders took place. It's boarded up, it's fenced off, there's a security box. So if shoes are present on the overhead line with this relevancy of imagery that's taken place on a particular day when Street View, the car came on down, it did signify that shoes were on the overhead lines. So you could say, well, with the shoes being present, that resembles the death of somebody or some people, which could link to this because it's all taken on the same exact day. And this is post-murder to do with the crime scene, the area. So it could be honouring the death of the 4 students. I would agree with that and I would understand. But the fact that once you go down here and you go down King Road, which seems more out of date because the whole scenery changes. It's been taken at a different time, right? You look at the grass, it's green. You go here, it's scorched. It's been taken on different days and arguably different months, possibly different years. This street view of this road is more relevant and more up to date than down here. Why? Well, on the other road, you see that it's been boarded up, closed off, right? But down here, it's not. And at least when you could go down the road there on the left and you could pass by the house, there was no scene, there was no visualizations of a crime scene that's taken place or been investigated. So this seems more out of date. And if it's more out of date and it's before the murders took place, then all these shoes are not relevant to the 4 students. But the shoes that we could see at the top on that avenue, looking down King Road, and the shoes being in the corner over that way, maybe that was more relevant to the murders, right? So the shoes at different times, different months, different years can resemble different events. The murder of somebody, the death of someone, or to do with drug usage. Now you can say there are crossovers and correlations to be made, and that said, there could be activity with drug usage, drug dealing in the area, and if you get these frat parties or people hanging out together, whilst also being under the influence of some kind of substance abuse, it could lead to possible death, right? You see the crossovers. Let me know if you agree or not there. But this street corner, this area, key hotspot for cars parking up on the side, students living nearby. Did they come here, meet up and have some drugs, get some substances? Is that possible? That's a bit more out of date. In this area, do these shoes represent drug dealing patch, a territory patch owned by gang members? Either way, you don't really want to be in the presence of gang members or a mob. You don't want to be in the presence of a drug dealer or dealers because they may come after you. Whether you report them, whether you just see something going on but you're not supposed to see, they may threaten you, they may harm you. Even the people that may have dealers in this area, they can be in danger too, because if they get hooked on drugs, they need more but they can't pay for it, but they say, I'll pay you back. Maybe those dealers never got paid back, so they came after people. and if any of those people under the usage of drugs or in the debt of a drug dealer close to this area, in connection to the students over there, could have been collateral damage. Do you get what I'm saying? If this area has a form of activity for illegal actions, activity going on, illegal stuff, which attracts bad people to the area, dangerous people, could it be a situation of wrong place, wrong time? The 4 students who were in that building at the time indirectly or directly attracted the presence of a drug dealer or dealers or gang members. Now, I wish I could get closer to that building, but I can't. So what I will do is I'll just try I'll try the satellite first. So I don't want to go in too deep because I think what I could say may trigger people or cause trouble. But the students in that building there, center of the screen, some claims made that, like, the guy that was there, he wasn't supposed to be, or the murderer that came along to take out the odd female or all of them wasn't anticipating to come across a male, so had to recalculate the strategy in killing everyone on site, or at least trying to, and having maybe a struggle, a tussle with the male. You think if it's a male killer, which it's probably likely to be, going on into that house, taking people out one by one or whatever, if it's taking out females who arguably biologically are physically weaker than males, you can have an easier job at getting it done, right? Especially if it's one by one. But you add into the mix of a male or a few males being present, it's going to make the job harder for the killer, because it'll be a male attacking a male, and physically it might be more balanced and the struggle might be more real for the killer, okay? So there is concepts, ideas in the past by people in the community highlighting that maybe at least one of the students was a marked target and then the others were collateral damage as a possibility. But the killer wasn't anticipating to come across the other people or the odd other individual and thought, well, I'll have to take them out as well, so there were no witnesses. Though, isn't it correct that there was 2 other people in that building, upper floor or below, that managed to escape and were unharmed, possibly? So there's that to throw in. Now, am I saying that if there is drug dealing taking place in the area, there are dealers in the area, am I saying that the students, the victims, the 4 victims, were under the influence of drugs at the time? No. Have they ever been under the influence of drugs in the past? I don't know. Have any of the 4 student victims ever been in contact with drug dealers in the past, such as within this area? That's the question. If anyone knows, you can clarify it down below. I don't want to go all in on that, because if there are people present or family members of those victims, they may see this video, and very likely typical Americans will misunderstand what I'm saying here, okay? I'm putting it all on the table. I'm suggesting how one thing could link to the other. The idea that shoes dangling on the line, which can be a symbol for bad activity going on, gangs, drug dealing, both can be dangerous towards others. Both can be capable of killing civilians who may be innocent. But at times, like how people say, if somebody's killed, they're killed by somebody that knows them, close to them. Could be a family member, could be a friend, could be an acquaintance. So are we saying or suggesting that those 4 students in the building, whether it be one of the females or the male, were they ever in contact, or did they ever know of any drug dealers in which the drug dealers had a grudge with them? Or if there was any drug dealers which the students or student was using, was there any money in debt that they owed the dealer money and they never coughed up, so the dealer decided to go to that house and make them pay, or make one of them pay, realised there's multiple people in the building, I'll take them out as well. Is that a possibility? You never know. Now, what we need to add in okay, to be realistic. And the reason why it can apply. So we've got the symbolism that there is bad stuff going on in the area, despite it being labelled as a peaceful community up to a point. You got the murder house crime scene over there, and there were 4 students in there that had their lives taken away, and 2 other people managed to get out unharmed for most part of it. But in terms of the DNA left behind, besides the sheath that was found within, next to or just under one of the victims' bodies, in which the DNA linked back to Brian Kohberger, was that Brian Kohberger himself responsible for that? You kind of think so if it's got his DNA on it, but my other alternative suggestion was, if we're tying in line with Kohberger possibly being set up by someone else or some people, did they somehow manage to get that sheath or a sheath belonging to Kohberger or not, and managed to get his DNA on it to then plant it at the house to stage it as if Kohberger was there at the time and was responsible just because his DNA matches to the odd bit of evidence at the scene of the crime. Possibility people have been framed in the past, right? But one thing that's not been answered and still remains a mystery is the fact that DNA, unknown DNA, was found within the house belonging to 3 different unknown males. Confirmed to be males, confirmed to be 3 individual people. Now, who were those people? So we know the males. Of what age? Don't know. Are they from the area or outsiders? Don't know. Could that be linked with what we've been looking at today? The DNA of 3 unknown males present at the time of the scene of the crime taking place, possibly, or just before it happening. Did those 3 guys know or friends with the 4 students' victims or not? Were those 3 unknown males possibly gang members, a part of a gang in the area, hence why the territory of shoes being present here? Or were those males possible drug dealers that weren't getting their money, which was due from the students in the area, whether that be people here or the actual victims themselves using drugs, and the dealers wanted their money and decided to pay him a visit. Now, there's also that other possibility that the 4 students, the 4 victims, are completely innocent, but who they know or are friends with could have been in trouble, and somehow misidentification or going to the wrong place at the time, the gang members or criminals took out the wrong people. I'm trying to lay it all out for the different possibilities as to how things could have played out. Let's go to a different angle as well, just to see. But I do feel one thing for sure, right? If there was unknown DNA found belonging to 3 different males, those males have not come forwards till this day. They've not said anything public. They've not reached out. And to be honest, if people don't reach out or clear their names or say, hey, this was us at the place, the longer they spend in hiding, let's just put it that way, the more guilty they look. Why were 3 males at that place at the time or around the time of the murders taking place, supposedly? Why? Where did they go after? What were they doing there in the first place? Are they tied to the murder of the 4 students? Are they tied in association or know of Kohberger? Did they have a grudge against Kohberger and set him up? Or are they miscellaneous people, outsiders, or roughly operating within the area because they're a part of a gang, a bigger gang, or they're dealers separately and wanted their money? And that students, whether it be the victims themselves, or one of them at least, or other students within the area that owed dealers money because they were under the influence of drug use, or previously using drugs. Okay? Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong if you want, but this is just a theory. This is just an idea to symbolise that the shoes have meaning and that the shoes were present before and after the murders took place. So on one side, you could say the shoes represent or highlight the death of somebody, the four students. But on the other hand, you can say they were there before the students died, so it could mean a completely different thing, such as a dealing drop-off point. And the closer it is to the murder house, the possible chances are it could link more and apply. Okay? So I just want to know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you found this video interesting. Feel free to like and share it to spread the awareness so other people can see this video. And as I said, be sure to check back on the previous video I did and the one before that, top right corner of the screen, eye symbol. I guess we'll leave it there for now, see what happens, and I guess maybe check if there's any resistance as well following up from this video. As said, specifically worded, it's a theory, it's an idea, that's all for now. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, good night and goodbye.